So we had a board meeting last night?
Okay. We did.
Hi.
Hey there. So welcome to another episode. I think this is episode number 16.
Yeah, we should start planning for episode 20.
We should. Episode numbers up here. So welcome. My name is Eric Schwenk. I'm a trustee in the Village of Mundelein. And who are you?
I'm Kara. I'm also a trustee in the Village of Mundelein.
Awesome. And my quick disclaimer that this is my house. My cameras, lights, microphones, everything. No taxpayer dollars were used in the distribution, creation, all of that of this podcast. So this is just us. That's it.
Just us down here in your basement.
Just us in the basement.
It's not weird.
And there's cats and kids and all kinds of stuff.
I keep trying to get the cat to come back so that he can guest star on our podcast because he's so cute.
He did last week. It was great.
But he won't come back. So
he's hiding under a box over here.
I relate to that.
Yeah. All right. So this week it's board meeting number 3237, which was yesterday, August 23rd. So of course we did the normal call to order, the attendance, pledge of allegiance, approval of minutes. There was some public commentary this week. So during public commentary, we heard from Carol, who lives on Archer, who has concerns about the new brewery that's going into the old fire station and the noise that may come with that and traffic. And
I just have a question really quick about that. How long has that fire station been vacated? 20 plus years?
As a fire station?
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you.
I was just thinking about, so she said she lived there 54 years.
57, yep.
Oh, sorry. And I would imagine that a fire station would have been really noisy to live around.
It's probably true.
You know? And so I was just thinking that the brewery might be more quiet than the fire station probably was. But
yeah.
I think this was last night. It was an example of like kind of growing pains.
Right.
You know, things changing.
Definitely some growing pains. And so ultimately after she spoke for several minutes.
Less than 5.
No, more than 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. I'm just wondering. Oh, that's right. I did hear the timer go off.
The timer went off and the policy wasn't enforced. And so our staff will reach out to Carol and
hopefully answer the question.
Hopefully, yeah.
And there was a post in Mundelein Moms about it from one of her neighbors, and I tried to address it and to the best of my ability and knowledge. And the person that posted said she felt better after reading the responses. So hopefully, like that, those neighbors are a little bit less concerned as this progresses. But
right. And then the second person during public commentary was Tom we met, and Tom ran for mayor in the last election, and he came to speak about the utility tax, and that we need to focus more on generating sales tax and not taxing people.
Do you want me to talk about this now or later?
We'll get to the utility tax. Right. But one thing that I do want to hit on that Tom said was that developments don't pay for themselves. And Tom is absolutely correct in that. The developments, ginormous, large
there you go. I was going to say specify the
single-family home developments don't pay for the infrastructure and the ongoing maintenance. And Tom's absolutely right. And the only way that changes is with density, denser homes. Even if they're single family, if they're not spaced far apart, if they're literally stacked
they're not
next to
on the
each other,
typical cul-de-sac,
correct,
1 acre land type.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if they're more of the modern look of squished together, or even you build up on land that will create the density that increases tax revenue that pays for itself.
Right, which doesn't require increase in roads, increase in
sewer and water
infrastructure to be spread out. So
correct. Okay, so moving on from public commentary. Under presentations and awards, we did have a utility tax presentation. So our village administrator, Mr. Gunther, gave a presentation just kind of detailing out the utility tax program. Do you want to talk about that now?
Yeah, we can talk about that now. So I hope the people that are watching this are watching just for this portion of it. I mean, obviously stay tuned, but this is probably the most pertinent thing to the public at this point that was on the agenda last night, I think.
Right.
So during strategic planning last year, the board directed staff to find increased sources of revenue. And the reason for that is because costs are rising. We know that. You and I pay more at the grocery store. We pay more for goods. We pay more for services. Costs are rising. And that is not just in the private sector. That's also in the public sector. The cost of asphalt is increasing. Salaries are having to increase. And that's because we want to keep retention of good people in the village. So all these costs are increasing. And since Eric and I have joined the board, our budget hasn't vastly increased.
No, the amount of money that we levy every year is stagnant. It's flat.
Yeah. So both of us ran on, well, Eric really, Eric obviously knows all the things, but
Stop it.
he ran on fiscal responsibility and writing our budget process, and not writing, but writing it, making it correct. And part of that is shoring up our reserves. And previous to our tenure on the board, the reserves were spent quite a bit and spent down.
Correct.
And now it's up to this board and us to fix that. And so we're going to take the heat for fixing it. So that's what last night was, is our village administrator went on there and gave this presentation on utility tax. But I also wanted to touch on the other sources of revenue that have been accomplished in the last year-ish. And there's 8, and I'm reading them because I don't have them memorized. Sorry. But so we talked about fire medical billing initiative that we voted on 3 or 4 weeks ago, 2 board meetings ago, I believe.
For billing for fire services.
Yes, which we already bill for ambulance, so why wouldn't you mirror it with fire services, which other municipalities do as well?
Yep.
None of these things that we're doing are groundbreaking and exclusive to Mundelein.
Nor do they increase, other than the utility tax, like this fire service does not increase payment by residents. Exactly. So the fire billing initiative was one. The NIMAC Green Energy Initiative. So this was, we talked about this a couple weeks ago. This is basically energy aggregation for green energy, where we participate this. And it's, that will net us $34,000 that wasn't there before. Winthrop Harbor shared dispatch services. So this is 911 consolidation. So when Winthrop Harbor, North Chicago call 911, they get a dispatcher in the village of Mundelein that dispatches police and fire from Winthrop Harbor and North Chicago. Is there one other one? No.
Okay. Sorry.
Not yet.
So that's netting, and that's not inclusive of, this is taking into account salaries, almost $705,000. A tax on Airbnb rentals. This is not a big deal, but
it's a small amount of money.
It's a small amount of money, but it's important to do because it was setting up hotels for failure. That hotels have to pay this tax and Airbnb does not.
Correct.
Shared services with Long Grove for planning, Buffalo Grove for equipment and vehicle maintenance. So those two, and building inspections. Those 3 are over $100,000 in incremental revenue. An increase in zoning fees, which we have not touched since, ready for this, 1994.
Correct.
What fees in world have been not touched since 1994? I would love to know. And then we transferred our, sorry, that just went out. Yeah. Freaked me out. I was like, oh my God, did we stop recording? So we transferred our banking to Mundelein Community Bank for savings of $12,000. Okay. So this is total of $943,000 that was netted this year in incremental revenue. The other thing that I wanted to touch on was, here we go. Where is it? Here we go. Property acquisition and management. So you and I have we both talked about when we campaigned to stop buying land.
Yeah, it was something that I talked about even during the election when I ran, was that Mundelein has a lot of land that's not on the tax rolls.
Exactly. So both of us have sat in executive sessions numerous times and said, sell it, or
don't buy it.
I don't want to buy it. And those words have been said numerous times. But some of that is coming to fruition now. 2 years on the board. Here we go. We sold lot 30 for $600,000, which was given to us by CN. So that's all. Correct. That's all positive. The Highland Park Land Covenant, this is kind of like a complicated thing.
This is a very complicated one. We're taking over a covenant rights for land for the National Park Service, right?
Yeah.
The Department of Natural Resources, DNR, Illinois is involved, and it's still going through the steps. But we're basically going to take over a land covenant requiring public land for the retention pond.
Yeah.
The
So that's
ginormous
400.
one that
So
we
that's
made this year.
$400,000 that will
Yep.
get the Greg's Landing, Vernon Hills property sale, which is over by the golf course in Greg's Landing. We negotiated that sale up from $300,000 to
Right.
$425,000, and I know that I saw Mr. Gunther last night hand the closing documents to our attorney, so probably will
It's
close.
happening.
And then we sold 169 North Seymour for $340. So that's $1.7 million in property that was sold over the last year. So now we're looking at almost $2 million that we netted this year positive, just from these initiatives. So
Which is not, all of it is not spent already. So we have spent some of that money towards Park Street improvements or some alleyway and some small pet projects that have been
that need to be done. That alleyway is a disaster. It needs
Right.
to be done.
So yes, some of this will be spent, but we're still planning $1 million surplus into the reserves at the end of the fiscal year.
And this does not take into account any money that we're going to receive from the feds in terms of the CARES Act. So
4.3 million,
Yeah.
which we began the steps last night. We'll get to that.
So it's not, and I hope people are still watching after my oration, I'm sorry. It's not something we take lightly in terms of raising our taxes or adding new fees or anything like that. I told my mom last night before I got to the meeting that I haven't felt sick to my stomach in a vote for
Right.
for a long time. It's about due for it, right? We're residents here too. You know, we raise our families here too. These fees affect us as well. And
Correct.
we don't do this because it's fun.
No, nobody wants to raise taxes or increase fees or
But
do
we
any
have
of
a
that.
responsibility to take care of and I have said this, that you have a responsibility to take care of the stuff you own so that you don't have to buy new stuff.
Right.
So it's easier to maintain the roads rather than to resurface versus rebuild. So
Right.
if we adequately funded our roads budget better, we could probably focus more on resurfacing
Cheaper.
than rebuilding. But because we've gotten so far behind in previous boards and previous mayors and previous I guess the word administrations, I should probably say, we are now having to catch up, and we can kick the can down the road. That's Ray Semple's term.
Yeah.
Or we can man up and face the heat on social media and get ostracized and get, it's not fun getting beat up. It's not, no one likes it.
Yeah.
But
This morning I got called a minion and told that I should be horsewhipped.
But over $3 a month, and I know that $3 is tangible money to people. I get it. I'm not that aloof. I understand that. We're a
Sure.
one income household. My husband, I stay at
too.
home, and this affects us as well. But for the greater good of the community, you have to maintain your stuff.
Your infrastructure.
And
Yeah.
and you brought up a really good point last night. And I guess I was quiet last night at the meeting, but you brought up a really good point of when the pandemic hit. I really told the mayor that that him and John Lebedo needed to check in with our business owners to see what we could do. And because we were talking about,
How we
is
could
there
help.
a grant program we could do, all this stuff, but you'd have to fund a grant program so heavily that to make a difference that we didn't have the funding for it. And the majority of our business owners told us maintain the infrastructure so that when we come back and things open up again, people are not having to drive on awful roads to get to our businesses.
Right. And do you remember during that time, where did they want to take that money from? We talked about a $1 million grant program for businesses.
Oh,
And it was going to come out of the Road and
Bridge Fund. Yeah. But $1 million spread out between like the amount of businesses for us is
Right.
negligible.
Hundreds and hundreds of businesses.
Negligible.
It's a negligible
You
amount
would
of money.
it was like you would end up giving them like $1,000 or something
Right.
silly.
And that's why we did things like the utility grant, businesses that were really struggling. Instead of trying to help everybody, we went to those that were really struggling and said, okay,
Let us help you.
Let us help you. And it worked.
So I guess I'm off my soapbox now. But
I'll step up on mine real
okay,
quick.
go.
And
I'll hand it over.
I'll give the summary of what I said last night, and quite frankly, I ran on fiscal responsibility, on transparency, and on infrastructure. Those were three key points that I saw that needed to be addressed. And fiscal responsibility, I even sat down with Kara during the election and filmed a video about about our credit score for the village of Mundelein. We dropped, and that causes the village to spend more money in debt service, in the amount of interest that we pay for the amount of money that's loaned out. So when we did a $10 million bond recently for the drainage program, we did it at a higher interest rate than what was necessary, and that credit rating was because our reserves were spent down. So yes, the reserves have been diminished over the past 8 years, and it's time to build them back up. And we don't have any money left in our budget to do that. Yes, we've had some sale of property,
but it's not recurring.
It's not recurring,
right.
and we don't have enough to build it up to where it needs to be. And our policy, the board policy, has been 33%. So roughly 3 months of expenses in our reserves, and anything above that can be spent for capital improvements. And now we're changing that to be a 6-month policy. And the pandemic has taught us that we need to plan accordingly, that we don't know what's going to happen next month, next year, and that we as a village still have essential services that need to be funded. And we have to be fiscally responsible in order to maintain those services should funding be cut drastically and immediately. So that's the reserve part. And then on the infrastructure part infrastructure is roads. It's Mayor Lenz commented last night about parts of Mundelein that still don't have curbs.
Yeah.
And curbs help with water and drainage. So there's a lot to it. And we just don't have the money in our current operating budget, that the amount that hasn't been changed in years. We're still telling staff, here's the same amount of money as last year.
Do more.
And
when we
can
sat
only
down
do it for so long.
Yeah,
and
when we sat down with the department heads.
On the last thing was transparency. And that's why we're here, is to be available. I was on social media this morning, not necessarily defending the tax, but defending my position on why I voted for it. And every trustee has their own opinions. But we're all reachable.
Yeah.
And
we are here to answer questions, and which is why we do this. But I was just going to, people probably aren't going to listen for much longer, but we always sit down with the department heads at budget time, and we talk about and there's a list of what they want to do. And there are some big projects that keep getting deferred because there's no money for it. Like top of mind comes the Regency Center pond needs to be redredged so that it can take more water in. It's not going to get done anytime soon because the money isn't there. Or updating all of the street lights to LED high efficiency lighting.
We've been doing that for years, a little bit at a time.
Yeah, but
every year the cost increases.
Right, and so we do less. So it kicks the can down the road. So, or roads, we have this huge list of roads that need to be done, and
when we joined the board, the number for roads was $5 million a year. That was where we should be. We should be at $5 million a year into our road and bridge fund, and that's just to maintain the roads at their current state. Now that number is $6 to $7 million per year.
And that's partially cost increase, but also roads deteriorating more that they shy away from resurfacing.
We're not keeping the amount of roads the same.
Yeah.
And this is Mundy.
He's here to be our therapy cat.
Yes.
So this is definitely a source of angst for us, and we get it. We live here. We have budgets too. But this is the why behind it. So.
Right. Okay, so that was the utility tax presentation. I'll add some of the slides in while we're talking.
Oh, good. So stop looking at her face during this.
Right. So next up, we recessed into two different public hearings. So one was for Sheldon Woods Special Service Area number 4. So we have started doing these SSAs for they're dormant. That's basically what it is. So they lay there in case the HOA fails. And for Sheldon Woods, this is the development, the Pulte development across from Target. And this just sits there.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully it never has to be used.
Hopefully it never has to be used, but it's a way to, again, with finances, be fiscally responsible, that should the HOA fail, we have a way to recapture some of the cost that would be spent by the village to maintain the infrastructure in that area. And then second was the Bridge Industrial Development, and this was an annexation hearing more than anything. There was some public commentary from the Cushing family who owns the adjacent property, and they spoke about their concerns regarding lighting and trucks and traffic, which are real valid concerns.
Again, a little bit of growing pains.
I would agree. And I think that the developer is working with them on drainage and on the retaining
Lights.
wall and lights, and trying to be cognizant of their concerns, but also working to get the project completed.
I just did want to touch on this really quick. So this development is in accordance with the ULI study that was done previously to our tenure on the board, and then also with our comprehensive plan. So this goes hand in hand with what should go there from an expert's point of view, urban planning,
And
urban
it's
planners.
Perfect development inside TIF number 4.
Yeah.
Which is
So and this
for that area.
right, and this will. They have not this meeting, but 2 meetings ago, the developer said that this would probably be light manufacturing, and not something that produces a ton of truck traffic because of the size of it. So
Right.
we'll see.
And also during the presentation, they talked about the number of jobs. The facility is 300,000 square feet, and they said the rough estimate is 1 job per 1,000 square feet. So 300 jobs.
Yeah, that are hopefully walkable
Hopefully.
distance to residents right there.
Homes,
Yeah.
So moving on to mayor's report, the village administrator contract. So a year has flown by, and our village administrator's contract was up for renewal. And the board met in executive session to discuss this and agreed to a 5% raise. So that it passed 6 to unanimous with the board to amend his contract.
So salaries are something that's kind of a hot topic right now, and I just want to talk about salaries in the public sector are a little bit different than in the private sector. There's certain thresholds of space that has to be between department heads and the village administrator, and how salaries are calculated are a little bit different than in the private sector because it is all public knowledge. So that was an eye-opening thing for me when I
Correct.
was first on the board, was like, wait, what? There's a set gauge that this has to be between. So there's certain parameters that have to be followed.
Right. And all of that information is available on the village website. So under Illinois Sunshine Laws, anybody that makes above 70 or 75,000 per year has their salary information posted on the village website. So it's available for anybody that would like to see it. Next up was the North Suburban Employee Benefit Cooperative. So this is a way that the village administration, Len Monroe, our human resources manager, and Eric Gunther's team there are working to try to find cheaper insurance. And this is a way to do that. And we gave the village administrator the ability to terminate a contract. He may or may not. We're still waiting on final numbers, but those final numbers and the action needed will take place before our next board meeting, which is 3 weeks away.
Yeah.
So we gave that authority should it be needed. Next up under trustee reports, we moved through to community and economic development. And so let's see, we had a couple here. One was for Armour Boulevard. So this is a parking lot. Basically, it's an outdoor space that will be used as contractor storage, and some variances were
And it's
needed
like
in a
tucked away
special
and
use
not
permit.
by anything. I mean, it's
Correct.
by rise, but it's not like an eyesore in the middle of any,
Correct. So that was granted. We changed the permit fees like we talked about earlier. This is for things like planned unit developments, plats, special use permits, zoning variations, those kind of items. We brought those fees more in line with 2021. Sheldon Woods, these are the motions that were related to the special service area that we had in the hearing. There's some timelines that have to be kept and when motions are made, and that was done last night. There was 2 of those. Both of those motions passed. Under bridge, industrial development, there was a couple of motions here. These were for map amendments and lighting variations, an ordinance annexing,
I don't know,
annexing,
bringing it into the village.
Amanda, let us know. Thank you. Yes, bringing that land into the village. And let's see, the execution of the annexation and development agreement.
Mm-hmm.
So those items were done last night. Let's see. Oh, and then the final preliminary and final
Approval.
plat of subdivision. Last under that report was the amendment for the zoning ordinances. So this has to do with the entertainment in the downtown
yeah.
area and kind of setting how far away tables have to be from residential and sidewalk dining and all that good stuff.
Giving us guidelines to follow as Park Street continues to like grow and thrive and
Absolutely. So we had the Public Works Committee, CMAC Maple Avenue Shared Use Pathway. So this is the work that is it done? Almost done?
It's got to be done. It's almost done.
On Maple
Guardrails
176, the guardrails up there for that shared use path. And this is some of the financials behind that.
I've seen so many bikers on that lately. I was so excited.
Right?
Yeah. So it's good.
I am so looking forward to having it all completed to the Libertyville Trail.
Oh,
the one that goes by Carmel and straight over to Libertyville, and just being able, as somebody who runs or aspires to run, since I kind of stopped, I look forward to that. Don't judge me.
I'm not. I mean, we use it as bike path, but
right. Yeah. Nick runs on it for cross country.
Oh, good. So it's being okay.
Yeah.
Anyway.
All right. So sorry, my camera cut out there. We were finishing up talking about the CMAC Maple Avenue shared use path, and now.
Oh, this is going to be weird.
So we have to go back and
we already talked about this.
We already talked about this, but we didn't.
Recording.
Yeah. So next up was the Finance Committee. This week we talked about the Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, and this is the $4 million that we're going to get out of ARPA, which is the federal government funding. And in order to receive those funds, we had to pass an ordinance talking about one was like a conflict of interest, so that none of that money can be utilized in any business that I'm related in or to. Same thing with you or any village employee. It's a policy that we already follow and already have in place.
Yeah, it's interesting, yeah.
But now we had to pass it through this ordinance related to ARPA. And second was regarding discrimination, so that we can't discriminate against anybody based on race or sexual Actually, sexual orientation is not just their actual
race
sex.
And gender.
Race, gender.
Yeah. Got it.
And that they're not as inclusive as I think they should be. Utility tax. We've talked about this one a lot already, so we won't go into it any further. But it did pass 5-1, with Trustee Cabachuela being the only no vote on that. Governing body bill approval. This is our payment to bills for the past 2 weeks, totaling $1,370,950.36. And next month, you're making that motion.
I'm not on the finance committee. Thank you.
And then next was Public Safety Committee, and you can take it away from here and finish.
Did I just knock over my coffee? Sorry. Public safety. So there was just one motion, and that was a motion regarding our 911 consolidation and extending the terms of the intergovernmental agreement. I was like, what are the words I'm looking for?
Just another acronym, IGA.
Seriously. Which is actually an immunoglobulin, but that's from my other life.
Right. I have some of those too.
Sorry. And then the chiefs gave a report. One of them was that the Latino Police Academy starts Thursday, September 2nd, and then blood drive September 4th at the fire department. And
make an appointment.
Larkin encouraged people to make appointments. Jesus. I promise it was smoother the first time we recorded this. And building committee, and that was it. So there was nothing else with public safety. Building committee, no report. Transportation and infrastructure, no report. No report from the village attorney. I asked Kelly last night, like, what our village attorney, what
could a report ever be?
And she said basically nothing, because it's all attorney-client privilege.
That's a good point.
So weird that we say it every time, but whatever.
I think it's actually in there per ordinance.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. And then the omnibus vote was a professional service agreement for the Village Hall subdivision, which is the big open space outside of Village Hall. And then we did have executive session last night to talk about personnel and minutes. And that was it.
Yeah. No action after the meeting. And
nope.
I think we were done at 8:45 last night.
Yeah. So
with a board meeting, 2 hearings, and executive session.
It went fast. So that's it. Both Eric and I have said, if you have questions, concerns, comments, please email us. Our phone numbers are also on the website. I am around town constantly, as are you. Stop us, talk to us. We're here to address questions. You know, we take this role pretty seriously, and we do joke around with each other a lot, but we do take this seriously, and
absolutely,
we want you to know that we're always accessible. So.
And I also understand I'm probably not going to change your mind, and
Yeah.
that's totally okay. I just want you to have all of the facts and the information, and if you care to know, a reason why I make the decision that I make.
Yeah.
And we don't even see eye to eye on everything. So stop us, talk to us.
Yeah.
We're here.
Community events this weekend. I don't know.
I don't.
Farmers market is back to Little Sprouts night at the farmers market on Friday.
Okay.
So stuff for kids to do. And then I don't know what else. That's it.
And the next board meeting is the
3 weeks.
13th of September.
Because 2 weeks is Labor Day. Summer's over.
Oh.
So.
All right.
All right. See you around, dude.
All right.
Take care.
Thanks for watching. Bye.